welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, my name is Phil Dewey. I'm the founder of Paradox, a paranormal research team based out of North Texas. Bigfoot, chupacabra, Jersey Devil, Loch Ness Monster. They might all be urban legends to you, but to us, they're called cryptids. Join us today as we venture into the world of cryptozoology. Things are about to get hairy, so let's roll that intro. So we're here today with Mudrat and Renee again, and today we are going to be talking about cryptozoology, which basically is the study of unknown, legendary, or extinct animals, or animals that have not been technically discovered yet, aka Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Jersey Devil, Mothman, etc.
Honestly, I think I could make that list.
I think so too, but we've discovered you.
You've been discovered.
I'm waiting for somebody to really discover me.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Climb every
So
mountain.
if you want to discover Mudrat, you send a link to our email. Okay, so basically, you know, there's a lot of things out there that people see mythologically, legendary, urban legends, and stuff like that. And next to the actual hauntings and spirits, cryptozoology is probably one of my favorite things to discuss because the theories are so out there on some of them. And I have a pretty crazy one that we'll get into later about Bigfoot. But not only that, the people that really devote their lives into discovering and researching these, I think they go harder into their subject than paranormal, like ghost hunters and paranormal investigators.
Oh, I believe so. I've seen wonderful investigators take impressions of their potential Bigfoot sightings of their feet. And I've definitely seen the logs that they have of it. It is absolutely insane on how deep they go.
And not how deep they go, but also I'm looking at you, Chuck.
Don't go there.
Don't go there. But
so no, literally, it's hard.
So the other, you know, the meticulous loggings, like you said, because they'll scour a location in grid style searches, like of someone that's looking for a missing person. And they'll find the minute little hair fibers like, oh, this doesn't look like a coyote or a bear, or we're going to send it in. But I mean, to find some of that minute stuff in the whatever outworld or outdoor world they're looking for is nuts.
That's part of it, because since it is a cryptid, it is something tangible. It's not, you know, like a spirit where it can come and go and you really have no proof of anything. Right. They know that if they just stay on it and stay dedicated, they might find that little piece.
Yeah.
So.
And it's awesome to watch. I mean, there are, just like in every other kind of field, there are, I think, people that maybe take it too far. Where, like in our expert area of not expertise, but our area of study, which is the ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. You know, some people go too far. And it's like, everything's this, everything's that, you know, and like there's some people out there and say for Sasquatches,
everything's Bigfoot.
Everything's Bigfoot. You know, somebody could let a low pass gas go and someone's like, did you hear that howl of Bigfoot in the distance?
Oh, yeah, dude. That, or like a branch breaks off and hits the ground. They're like, oh, you hear that tapping? That's Bigfoot following us. He's going to get us.
They're just so dedicated. It just turns to straight tunnel vision.
It does.
It does. So, you know, some of the big ones that everybody knows, obviously Sasquatch, Yetis, Bogey Creek Monster.
There's the Bogey Creek skunk, the skunk apes, the Momo.
Yeah.
You know, those are all pretty much ape-like creatures that, you know, are believed to be out there.
So. Right. And then my favorite are the more local down here to Texas, are like the chupacabra. And we'll go over an experience I had with a NUNNIPI, which is technically the Comanche word for little people. And I think every culture around the world has some type of these little people, leprechauns, gnomes, stuff like that. I think all around the world, everybody calls them something different, but I think they're all pretty much like a subspecies of each other.
Oh, absolutely. Even in the Native American, because those are like more of our local, but you go farther north, they call them pukwudgies.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact same thing, which, over there they call brownies, leprechauns, stuff like that.
Right. So it's crazy to see how some of these things multicultural feed over. And I mean, I think that's all these creatures that you see, except for maybe Loch Ness. I mean, we don't have a Loch Ness in Lake Louisville, so
Actually, not in Lake Louisville.
I was like, really?
Not in Lake Louisville, but just to the north in Oklahoma, they have the lake monster. I don't remember what lake it is, but it's a giant octopus.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a little bit different than. We have to check that one out, though. I want to go check that out. It's only in Oklahoma.
It's in Oklahoma. I don't think it's in the Eufaula Lakes. I think it's around the Broken Bow area.
Okay.
But yeah, it is. It's supposed to be a giant octopus-like creature. They only describe it as that because it has the long tentacles and whatnot. It could be like the Kraken.
Okay, that's since it's kind of local to us. I think that would be a cool little trip for us to go on.
Absolutely.
So I'll go into a little bit of my NUNNIPI story because I know that's kind of where I really started like getting a little bit more involved in the cryptids. And so back, I want to say when my daughter was 3 or 4-ish. So we're talking 16 years ago.
Old person.
Yeah. So her and my wife, we all went up to Oklahoma for my wife's family. We had Christmas up there and they're all Comanche Indian. My wife is half Comanche. And we were up there and I was unloading all the Christmas presents and my daughter was outside with me, but we had just gotten up there and it was about midnight and we were unloading the Christmas presents and they live out in the country. And growing up or being with them for so many years, I'd always heard of them talking about these nunnipis, these little people that come up and they basically try to lure the children into the woods. And that's how they would technically reproduce, is by turning these children kind of into nunnipis themselves. And where we were, they would always like, oh yeah, we would wake up and see little handprints on the windows. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's insane. So we're unloading the presents. True's out there with me and she's standing, in her little puffy jacket and helping me. I'm giving her a little couple presents, the smaller ones to carry into the house. And they had a compost type garbage bin. So outside across the driveway from their house, there was a little compost. And I heard rattling and rustling and footsteps and stuff like that. So I turned around 100% expecting to see a raccoon, possum, even maybe even a hog, because there's a lot of hogs out that way too. And when I turned around, I saw a figure that was probably about 2 to 3 feet high running away from me. And my initial thought wasn't like, oh, this is a nunnipi. My initial thought was that the neighbor across the drive, about a half a mile down the road, has a bunch of young children. And I'm like, oh, wow, her children are out late. But then I'm starting to think, I'm like, it's December, it's Christmas, it's cold. And all I saw were little butt cheeks running through the forest.
My bad.
So, at that time, I'm like, it took me a minute to start registering that they were talking about these little people and they're about that size of a 2, 3, 4-year-old. And I walk in and I talk to one of my wife's cousins. I'm like, so what's a nunnipi supposed to look like? And they all just looked at me and they're like, why? And I'm like, well, I think I just saw one outside. And then we had this whole long conversation and they're pretty much like, oh yeah, this sounds like what everybody sees. They usually have clothes on, but if he only had a loincloth on, he was running, and I saw was like a person with long black hair with a butt cheek running through the woods. And then
I think you're projecting at this point.
Then when we came back out, right by our car, there was a little handmade hammer that was probably about this big. It looked like a hammer, but it wasn't like it was made with a rock and stuff like that. So it was a kind of eye-opening that, I'm like, oh, there's nothing like leprechauns or anything in the United States. And then we had a conversation and sat down and pretty much was like, oh yeah, that's the nunnipi. And then I learned the legends of the nunnipi and stuff like that. So that was pretty crazy.
Dude, I mean, that is exactly what the pukwudgie is from the northern states.
Okay.
The little, 2 to 3 foot tall. used to be friendly with man, and over the years there's some sort of falling out, and now they actually try to lure people off in the trees by something innocent, like, hey, come follow us out there, and then of course you're not seen from again if that happens.
Yeah, so that's definitely an eye-opener for me, where I was like, okay, well, if those exist, what else exists? So
there are definitely little people out there.
Yes, but we're not talking about the
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, we're not talking about we're actually talking about the mythical ones.
All right. But, I mean, since we're already on the Native American, I mean, another one that is really big, of course, way up towards the north is where it originated, the Wendigo.
Yes.
Yes.
And, that is a fantastic one that I've always loved, always kind of, since I was always a camper, always had a fear of course, because it craves human flesh and greed. And so I just...
And the thing that I love about the Wendigo is they finally made a scary movie about a Wendigo.
Yes.
And that was called Antlers. So if you haven't seen Antlers and want to see kind of a Wendigo kind of movie, that is an awesome movie.
Another movie that was kind of like that, because that was the premise behind it, but it was done like in a realistic view, like actual humans instead of something that could be cryptid. Ravenous.
Okay, I have not seen that.
Oh, that is a fantastic film. And of course, it's like I was in high school when that came out.
Okay.
So it's an older film, but it is very good.
Awesome. So, what other type of cryptids do you all want to bring up?
Oh, I feel like we haven't talked about Mothman yet.
Oh, yeah,
nice.
That's a good one. I'm glad nobody's talking about him right now. Because if somebody starts talking about him again, we got to kind of look out for some stuff.
Especially over in the area where he was seen.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
For those who don't know, what the theory is, if you see Mothman,
disaster follows.
Yes, so we're kind of glad he's been hanging back a little bit, because I don't think we can handle any more disasters in this.
No.
Dude, he's sitting back looking at the world right now going, oh man, I can't even.
Yeah, where do I go next?
Where do I go next? He's like, I can't cover all these places.
I'm like Santa. I have to be everywhere in one night. It ain't happening.
Yeah, but you can continue. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're absolutely fine. I was trying to look on the last sighting of him, but I wasn't able to pinpoint it. I know from his original location where he was, the Silver Bridge was the last disaster where somebody's physically eye spotted him. And then bridge crashed, hasn't been seen.
Yeah. Which is like, again, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that's good news. That's good news.
And then, the theory is that Mothman isn't technically an earthbound creature, that it's actually an extraterrestrial or a cross-plane being.
Yeah, but now if we're getting into the cross-plane beings, we got some theories.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into my theory that is probably going to aggravate any of the extreme Bigfoot people out there. Is I do not believe that Bigfoot is a fully physical being. I believe he is a cross-plane dimensional being. And that being said, I also think he's on the elemental side of the cross-plane. And my theory for this is, people have seen him for thousands of years, or any of the creatures that are like him. You would think that within those thousands of years, we would have some shred of evidence.
More than just a footprint.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a firm believer that he shows up, or it shows up, whenever it feels like that area is threatened by something, and that's its territory, and he protects it. He leaves signs so people really take it seriously that there's something out here. But then whenever you're about to catch onto him or catch him, he just shifts right back across that plane.
Yep.
And he's gone. And if they are cross-plane dimensionals or elementals, they have the ability and they're strong enough to leave odors, physical evidence, and footprints and howls. I mean, they're pretty strong beings. And
sounds like my ex-wife.
If you go into...
She disappeared too.
Come on, man. Bruh. So you go, these cross-plane beings, they can just phase shift or transform back to wherever they were and nobody's going to see where they are. If they are physical beings and they can cross plane, they're going to take their dead across the plane, so they're not going to leave anything behind. But then again, if they're elemental spirits, then they're spirits.
I mean, that absolutely, makes sense. That theory is very plausible. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thinking outside that box.
Right. Because there's just so many things that we haven't found, like any kind of evidence about them. Yeah, there's people who found hairs, but it always comes back inconclusive.
Yeah, it could be anything.
because it's never a large enough sample for it to be verified.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I don't understand is with how many like little hairs, why would you not like do as you said, they do like the grid search.
Right.
How is it not possible to find more than one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, more than a little tuft. That they've,
Just,
you would think if they were a physical being running through the woods.
there would be way more than that.
Right.
Dude, they've been winning Where's Waldo for years now. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Definitely the hide and seek champion of the century.
I'm telling you. But there is all over the world. So that theory is fantastic just in the sense of it explains why they can be found all over the world being named all these different things, like the skunk ape, Momo, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Yetis. They're everywhere. So, I mean, that has some good gravel to it.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I agree. It was my opinion.
Of course, when the hate mail comes in, it's Phil.
Yeah, it's Phil, and it is my theory, and I'm not trying to stomp down on anybody's theories.
Speaking on that matter, I would love to know what other people's theories on this are.
Yes, send it in to us. Let us know.
Yes, I will post our email down below on a little ticker, and I'll put it on our post, and feel free to email us. But make sure when you do, put in the subject like podcast and then theory or podcast question, or even if you want to send us some of your stories.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll probably do a viewer stories.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this is too big of a subject for us to get done in just one episode of a podcast.
Yes.
So, I mean, going from that, I mean, we could go all day on, Bigfoot, but, we're here in Texas. We got the chupacabra.
Oh, yes.
And even with the chupacabra, we have two different aspects to it, because you have the one that everybody believes that they have found more recently about it being like the dogs, because the ones here in Texas, they describe it like that. But the original one from Puerto Rico, it's more alien sounding because it's kind of lizard-like, has big eyes, has spines going down its back. And that is nothing like the dog ones that we hear described here in Texas.
That's very true. Yes. And I think they even said that the ones that you're talking about that were found in the Texas area were a crossbreed between a Mexican wolf and a coyote.
Yeah.
Something like along those lines.
Yeah, it was something along the lines with them having a skin condition called mange.
Yes.
For them to have that appearance.
Right.
But at the same time, I also believe that could be like the hardcore skeptics, the non-believers.
Very true.
That just want to find some sort of scientific evidence to nail it down and go, oh, that is definitely not real.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So that, and also locally, we have, which on this aspect, we're going to talk like Goat Man. But when you hear Goat Man, you think Goat Man's Bridge.
Yeah.
Not Goat Man's Bridge, which is actually just 40 miles to the south of us at Lake Worth.
Yes.
There was the Goat Man, which is more like what they tried to describe at Goat Man's Bridge or Old Alton Bridge in Denton. Right. Where it was half man, half goat, happened back in the summer of 69. Right. They believe that he's roaming around. There's a little island called Greer Island, which is a place that they used to send people that were trying to, like say come off of drugs or mentally unstable and things like that. So a lot of the theory was that it was actually one of those guys that had escaped, but too many people had seen it and heard the growling and described it as the top half was very Goat Man, had a head like a goat, right. Facial features kind of like a man, but had the horns of a goat and had the lower torso of a goat. But of course, we haven't really seen much of that since 1969, except for I think in 2009, somewhere around there was one gentleman that said that he thought he had seen it. Okay. But it's definitely kind of like the, Bigfoot in and out, disappears.
Yeah,
you know?
that's kind of like a theme with all these cryptids.
Heck yeah.
I mean, there's cryptids from all around the world. I think I may get it wrong, so please don't give me the luchezas, the witches from Mexico that turn into owls. And
Yeah.
I mean, those technically can be considered cryptids, or I mean, I don't know, because since they're witches, they may not be.
There's such a fine line on that, because even back in the day, people used to explain extraterrestrials or aliens as cryptids, but they are not. They have their own little subclass over there.
It's a little subclass that we'll get to on another episode.
Aliens.
Aliens. But so don't hate me for my Bigfoot theory.
We hate you. We all hate you.
Everybody kind of looks at me weird whenever we get started on that. They're like, I don't know.
Well, it's because it's so like out of the box. Normal people who look into this, they don't think that right away.
That's true.
That is not one of the first things, like even on like the first 10 things they would even think of. So it's very unique and interesting to think about it in that manner. And it truly does make a lot of sense. And especially with how many spottings all over the world.
Yeah.
Well, and then it also takes it from being a cryptid to a spirit type of thing. So it takes it into the different aspect.
Type of category.
Then also, again, the people who don't want to believe, that want to be very scientific and try to debunk it in every which way, which is awesome because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, for sure.
But they want to fight it and go, oh, that's way out of something we can never prove. So no, we want to say it's a tangible beast. It was a ape that got loose.
Right.
People misunderstood it, though it's been here for years. I mean, like even
thousands of years,
more recently, they have, they've supposedly gotten footage of Bigfoot or skunk ape or anything like that.
Right. And I think maybe that's where they get so offended is I'm like, well, that's such a cool being that we're going to claim him as a spirit now. And
we stole your big guy.
we're stealing him. Do I think any of the other cryptids are that way? No, it's only Bigfoot, I think.
Well, yeah, but
which is weird.
On that note, it could actually be something along those lines, or like say the lizard folk could actually be aliens.
Yep, didn't think about that one, but the reptilian people could be the reptilian aliens that everybody talks about.
Yep, which could also lead to the chupacabras.
Which could, they're all connected. It's all connected.
It's the Illuminati.
The Illuminati. They're controlling it all.
Illuminati.
Yeah, they're controlling it all. So, what else, guys?
Oh, I mean, there's like I said,
there's tons of them. But
I know.
Like the one in Van Meter Visitor, the Van Meter Visitor.
Okay.
He was a bat-like creature, the size of a man, and I believe it was like around 1903. It was in that town of the Van Meter, and it started off where they saw a light up on top of the bank, and they just assumed it was like bank robbers that were going to try to break into there. So the very next night, the bank manager owner went in there, took his shotgun, expecting that there would be some sort of robbery, and then at the door, there's this bright light. And you got to keep in mind, this is back before there had like big light, the sources and electricity. So when the front door lit up, he saw what looked like kind of like a bat shape. So he shot a shotgun through the window, which of course, if he wasn't actually scared, a guy like that would not be shooting through a window because now he's got to replace that.
Yeah.
And then of course it went on to the very next night. Somebody else again saw him. They claimed that they shot him. He shot 5 of the 6 rounds from his revolver. So either was a bad shot or it wasn't affecting it. Then a few nights later, another man from the town that was acclaimed for being a great shot looked out his window and he saw on top of a building a thing that looked like a bat. And what always drew everybody's attention, it was around 1 o'clock. There's a light, this bright light that seems to be coming from like a horn-like thing on top of its head. Okay. And so he aims at it, he shoots it, and all he heard was this horrible screech. The light came at him, and then all of a sudden he got a smell. And he said it was a horrid smell, and he didn't wake back up until the next day. He has no memory of anything that happened after he got that smell.
Oh, wow.
So,
that is insane.
Yeah. Then, of course, shortly after that, the town thought they heard it in the mines. So they went as a group and blew up the entrance of the mine. And since then, they have not seen it again. So they believe it was something that came up from the mine.
Which
That is
now that you
insane.
bring that up, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but there was a documentary, and I can't remember the name of it right now. I had it and I dropped it, but it's
Vetoed.
it's about this. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's about this group of paranormal investigators, and they're talking about all these interwoven mines up north in like New York and that kind of area, or in Kentucky and all that interwoven mines, and all these creatures come out of these mines.
Yeah, we don't know what's all down there.
So,
we've opened up the holes.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't even think they're even considered mines. I think they're just caves.
They're
and
everywhere.
They're all interwoven between like 6 or 7 states down there. And I was like, man, you know how crazy it would be just to go to some of these areas with those caves that people are saying that like these little white creatures are coming out there. Because yeah, they would be like albino white if they lived in the caves.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's like the movie Descent.
Yeah.
It's
and I
a
think
lot
that's
like
where
that.
they probably got the movie kind of like for Descent, because that's kind of how they describe them. And, you know, even though the documentary is a pretty good documentary, it does seem a little out there a little bit. But I mean,
well, a lot of these theories are going to be like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we have when our documentary comes out,
I mean,
that we were working on,
just think about somebody thinking that Bigfoot's some sort of spirit or something.
Bruh. Right. So
and then in the mines, that is, especially up north, that is something that, you know, because of the coal mining, we didn't really get a lot of that here in the South. But
That's
up north, that was everywhere. And yeah, there were like mines everywhere. We don't know what we're digging into. And then, you know, even we go into the spirit area of it, you got the Tommy knockers.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so much stuff that happens when we start digging into earth, into places that, should we be there?
Again, elemental spirits.
Bigfoot in the cave.
Well, not necessarily Bigfoot, but elemental. There was a show that was out a long time ago. I think it was called Ghost Mine. Probably one of my favorite shows.
Okay.
I know we're getting off of cryptids, but I'm just going to say right there, that whole show right there, I firmly believe that was an elemental spirit in the mountain.
Nice. I haven't seen it, so I will have to check it out.
It's
I'm going to have
cool.
to watch it too.
Yeah, like everything else that you have to
know.
watch. The list is so big.
Speaking
like
of
50
cryptids
pages.
More than
and
that.
movies, I just recently watched a found footage movie called Exists. And it is a found footage Bigfoot movie.
Okay.
Yes.
It is pretty awesome.
The same producers for that movie was the same one who did the Blair Witch Project.
Exactly. Yeah. And they just came out with it. It was on, I think it's on Prime as well. And definitely if you're into cryptids and kind of like those found footage movies, it's definitely a good one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I'll have to watch it too.
Yeah, it's definitely good. The other one that I'd like to kind of bring out as a cryptid is the Jersey Devil. So
yeah, because that's definitely a cryptid as much as like a Mothman would be.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And its background story actually leads to, you know, supposed truth. It was a known lady that lived up there that gave birth, you know, I believe it was like the 9th child or something.
9th child, and it was like a deformed child. And then they said it had the head of a goat, or not a goat, a horse. And then later on sprouted wings, and then they moved it out into the swamps of that area of Jersey.
The Everglades. Or not Everglades, I'm sorry, the
I just drew a blank too.
Yeah, that woody place with trees.
Yeah, like
yeah, it's like a swampy area that they have, and you know, ever since that, if you go in there, you'll hear them or see them. So
he likes human flesh.
He likes human flesh. He likes to eat you.
I mean, who doesn't? I'm tasty.
So cryptids are fun to get into. The theories are fun to get into. So again, if you have any stories of any kind of cryptids, and especially if you're up in the Oklahoma area near Lawton, if you've ever heard any stories of the NUNNIPIs, and I'll write down like what you can, like how to spell it and how you can try to look up what they look like and stuff, I would love to hear from you, because I know I'm not the only one that have seen them.
Dude, all those campers out there at Wichita Wildlife Reserve.
Yeah,
dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's an awesome place to camp. And I'm sure that area is loaded with all that energy.
Yes.
So I hope to hear from some of y'all. Like I said, send us your stories. And if you've seen a NUNNIPI, let me know.